What's up, Scyushi Squad? We are back in some more PTS patch notes. Yes, that's right. We're going to be talking about the Sunrise patch. So this is going to end up being the patch that's currently on the test server right now. And if I had to guess, I would say that console players, more than likely, the reason why you haven't gotten the Shadow rework or Shadow Hunter rework yet is because they were waiting for this update, which makes sense because they've done this in the past. The devs would rather use their efforts to convert a more complicated update along with all of the other ones before they release it for you guys on console. Now, I know that that's unheard of for a lot of other games, and I know that it's really disappointing and you guys are probably just fed up with it, but this update significantly changes TROVE'S end game, and I think the fact that you guys are going to end up getting the rework to all of the classes and this update at the same time, hopefully, is going to end up being really cool for you. Now, that said, I don't know when this update's coming out. Generally speaking, updates on the test server before they go to PC take 2 weeks to a month. Sometimes they're quicker, and then who knows how long it's going to take before it all ends up coming to console. I really hope that they have everything ready for you guys on console and you get the update really quickly, but honestly, who knows? Now, this update is going to end up tackling various things that we're going to talk about in the patch notes. There's some stuff we're going to skim over just because I'm going to have individual videos that will focus on those specific aspects. So, for example, this update is going to end up introducing the Solarion, a new class in the game, and I'm not going to end up going into more detail with the class currently because I already have a video recorded that is going to end up talking about the class in its entirety, right? So anyways, let's get to the patch notes. The Solarion is here. It explains all of his abilities. It explains his subclass abilities. It also talks about the hidden ring effects. Now we're getting into the brunt of it, which is going to end up being the Sundered Uplands. So this is actually a new biome added to the game. So the new biome has been added and is available as soon as U1 Adventure Worlds, but primarily found in U7 and up. So U7, just generally speaking, is going to be where you'll find this biome specifically. So let's actually hop in here so I can show you guys this. In addition to their biome-wide flight suppression field, through reckless exploitation of the world around them, the irradiated sky giant empowered both themselves and the astro. Okay, they're giving us lore for some weird reason, but players will have to utilize all the extra consumables available to overcome this difficulty. You basically can't fly here. It's a no-fly zone because we're going to constantly get this debuff in the top left that ends up giving us fast falling, right? So it's not like it's impossible to fly if you have enough jump to end up sustaining it, but generally speaking, you're going to end up falling a lot faster, and it's really annoying. There is a pay-to-win method of avoiding this, which is going to end up being these wings in this pack. They are going to end up avoiding the fall damage altogether. The Solarion also has a slow fall effect tied to its right click ability, which is very jank just because the servers are so laggy right now. You can see it's just barely working, but if we end up having our slow fall effect, it can kind of negate the problems that we're dealing with the fast dropping. But then on top of it, there's also going to be this little annoying freak right here, which will sell you these items that give you a limited time immunity to the debuff. And it costs a lot of a new plant type that you have to find in this biome, or 5,000 qubits each, which is ridiculous. So this will end up giving you 1 hour immunity online or offline. So if you log out for an hour, you lost the whole buff. This will give you 1 day. This will give you 3 days. Don't get any of these. They're all a beginner's trap, and the debuff isn't that bad, especially when you end up having the new Bomber Royale mount, which is going to end up being the Volatile Bounder, which, you know, we've talked about this before, ends up giving you a jump equivalent of 10 jumps. Anyways, moving on. So the Somber Ashen Wastes will have enemies. Oh my god, they're way too much in roleplay here with their description. So there's basically going to be 2 biomes in one. So this area, you'll notice, just looks like Cursed Skyland, and that's because it is. It's basically the exact same outside of, you know, it's got some different types of dungeons and slightly different aesthetics to it, but this is going to end up being the upper part of the end, the cloud part of the biome. And that's important because this workbench right here will end up having different craftable items, and some of these items, you can see this is from from the cloud layer. That's what they call this upper layer, and then these other the resources are from the Ashen Waste layer, which that is going to end up being the lower layer right here. And the funny thing is that we actually have two completely different sets of biomes here, because the dungeons that you get down here are different than the ones up top, and the resources you get down here are different than the ones you end up getting up top as well. So it kind of, in a way, it's really cool, but it also inflates playtime in this one biome by splitting resources and making it take twice as long. But anyways, they just keep on going on and on about all of the lore. So anyways, there's going to be outposts that can appear throughout the Sundered Uplands. These outposts provide personal chests, flash refillers, loot collectors, fungi adventures, which is going to end up being some mushroom dudes that'll basically end up giving you quests. Doesn't seem like we got any of them. Oh, maybe there is one way over on the right, which we can try and get. No, it's too laggy. I just can't get to it. I'm sorry. Like, look at this. It's so laggy, he won't even walk up one block. It's just, ugh. But anyways, look at this rubber banding. So they'll also end up having a variety of merchants that can end up selling you various things. So let's go on a little bit further here. So much in lore in the description. I didn't realize that they had this much of this stuff. So anyways, there's also going to end up being the flight buffs that we mentioned right here. So these are interesting because they mentioned that there's these buffs, but there's also other ones. So freedom of flight is all of these ones that we had mentioned, but there's also going to end up being a physical and magic damage buff equivalent scroll that you can end up getting from another fungal merchant, right? So when fighting in Sundered Uplands, these occasionally create physical damage or magic damage buffs, which increase the relevant damage by 75% for a short duration. These scrolls will not stack with each other, so no point in buying multiple of them. If you buy one and then you buy another one, you basically just refresh the timer. You didn't end up adding more to the timer. And the reason why this is important and actually quite annoying is that the enemies in this biome are actually scaled way too high. They're way more powerful than any of the other enemies that we faced in the game, and it's not tied to a light value because now it's tied to this new stupid scroll system, which is just way too expensive and just way too unorthodox for players to ever bother actually doing. There's also going to end up being a miscellaneous scroll where it says there are several of these scrolls available, and some of these scrolls can give you 50 jump, which is perfect for this biome, reduce incoming damage by 15%, or add resource collection scrolls. So essentially you would end up gathering more collection or more resources in the area. Players can only have one of these misc scrolls active at a time, and they will all only apply in the Sundered Uplands biome. So a little too many weird mechanics in place for this, but it does seem to make sense with the fact that so many of these resources are too expensive. So obviously if you end up having a resource boost, that can compensate for it. These enemies are way too strong, so having defensive buff or attack buff is going to end up compensating for that. So yeah, each of them is going to end up having bronze, silver, and gold scrolls, which is 1 hour, 1 day, 3 days, of course. There's also going to end up being some recipe traders. Geez, there's so much lore posted in this. So anyways, let's just skip through most of that. There's going to end up being trophies that you can get off of the creatures, and you can compost them. That's from gardening, to end up getting you a bunch of resources that are required to craft stuff. There's ongoing work in progress. So 5-star dungeons are not spawning in this biome yet. 5-star dungeons appear in the Sundered Uplands, and you will defeat new waves of enemies mechanics in order to face one of the new bosses. So it's kind of interesting that they have all of this new stuff specifically for this biome, but the 5-star dungeons do not seem to be working yet. I'm assuming, based on their explanation, that this biome can always have a 5-star dungeon, even at U1 difficulty, which is interesting because 5-star dungeons will be in every type of biome so long as you're in U10 or 11 difficulty, which we'll talk more about that a little bit later, just to whet your beak. So these 5-star dungeons can be completed once a day for gold results, twice a day for silver, and an unlimited amount for bronze results, which gives you gold, silver, and different rewards. pretty standard for 5-star dungeons at this point. Honestly, the ones in Geode Surface always did the exact same stuff anyways. So the Sundered Uplands workbench can be found at these outposts. So that's going to be this right here, which is going to end up giving you options to craft the Solarion, craft gem stuff, craft some collectible items, and craft some club decoration items. You can always craft this workbench as well, but it is going to cost some additional resources. And then this will allow you to donate supercharged crystals for a variable amount of Sundered Uplands loot boxes, which can end up giving you various other items, maybe even the collectible items. I'm not sure. There is also a terraformer for this biome, so you could put it in your club worlds, which is pretty cool. They also have some things that are ongoing work in progress. So new styles, recipes, and decorations have been introduced and can be attained from Sundered Uplands. Dragon fragments are not available yet. However, there are 4 new dragons that can be acquired in the Sundered Uplands. So 2 of the dragons can be obtained through a dragon effigy, and the other 2 cannot. So the dragons that can be obtained through the effigy is Bernie and Raymond. All right, cool. Let's see what each of these guys looks like. So we got this weird bat one. I don't know why it says it's tradable, which is kind of interesting. This guy's kind of gross. I guess he's to go with the ashen side of the biome, but okay, he glides around and he can end up shooting weird vortex fireball things. I don't know. It's kind of a reskin of another dragon, but hey, whatever. And then there's going to end up being Raymond, which is whatever this disgusting thing is. I mean, it's rainbow and it looks stupid, so I kind of like it. But this guy's going to end up shooting a different fireball. Kind of looks like it's just a bomb. I don't know, maybe it actually uses bombs. And then there's going to be the other 2 dragons, which we cannot obtain, which are available through Sundered Uplands specifically. I assume some fragments are in the Ashen, and then the other ones are in the Clouds. Then anyways, moving on to the next category, which is going to be crystal gems. Yes, crystal gems are going to be added to the game. So crystal gems can be found in U11 Uber Worlds and have a maximum of level 30. So you can actually, you know how normally right now stellar gems can go up to level 25. Well, crystal gems can go from 25 up to 30. Max level stellar gems can be upgraded into crystal gems by using a crystal gem converter from the gems tab in the store, which is going to be right here. Very, very expensive. This would be like the equivalent of 10 bucks if you buy this with credits, which is stupid. One of these crystal gem converters is the same price as the class pack. Like, okay, way too overpriced. Nobody should do that. And then 15,000 qubits is the free-to-play option, which is still way too expensive. But whatever, beggars can't be choosers. The fact that we can get it free to play, okay, cool. You can also craft them at the Sundered Uplands workbench or adventures crafting table, which is going to end up being these bad boys right here, which will have a different video that's going to go into more detail with this. Because I want to end up having a video that's going to focus on the crystal gems specifically, because otherwise we will literally be here all day. Like, these different items take a lot of steps in order to craft them, more so than you would think. Like, in order to craft this item, we need primal gem shard. In order to craft primal gem shard, we need fire gem spark, water gem spark, air gem spark, which costs each of these an equivalent of the air gem dust, or fire gem dust, whatever, right? So anyways, stellar gems converted into crystal gems will retain their power. A gem converted in this way will immediately be level 25 as a crystal gem. So essentially, if you have a level 25 stellar gem, you can essentially just force it into being a crystal gem, and it'll end up retaining all of the same stats. So it's kind of just like upgrading it, which is really nice. They will also end up keeping all of their stats and so on and so forth. Leveling crystal gems will now require new materials in the form of gem sparks, which can be crafted with gem dust and so on and so forth. We just kind of covered that very briefly. New crystal empowered gem boxes can also be constructed at the adventures crafting table. So if you want to have a crystal empowered air gem, it's going to end up costing these items specifically, or you can just go for the main box, which is just going to be all elemental gem types randomly. However, it costs a lot of empowered gem fragments, which you get for loot collecting empowered gems. There's actually what I would consider a bug right now, where you loot collect an empowered crystal gem and you do not get the empowered gem fragments. You just end up getting the other resource, which is the sparks, because that's right, if you loot collect crystal gems, you'll end up getting these sparks. So it's more beneficial to do that rather than end up crafting them for the gem dust, because there's just way too many zeros added in there. So Shores of the Everdark will now also drop Radiant and Stellar class gems in U8, while Stellar and Crystal class gems will be limited to U9. So the Everdark actually serves a purpose by going to U9 difficulty, which is really, really cool. I don't even know why they have the drop down tab instead of having the extra tab right there for this, but I guess they just had to unilaterally end up changing it. So there's also going to end up being new gem boxes that can be found in U10 and U11. U10 boxes will drop Stellar Gems and Gem Dust, which the point is that we have U10 in all elemental worlds now, including primal worlds. That's what they're getting at. But there's also going to end up being the U11 gem boxes, and they specifically have a rare chance of dropping Crystal Gems and Gem Sparks, which is going to end up being an invaluable object for the new gem system in the game. And generally speaking, at the very least, the fact that you can loot collect crystal gems into the gem sparks makes a very big difference. Now moving on from the gems, there's going to end up being U11 Worlds. So the generic U7 portal is now a Sundered Uplands world. So that's going to end up being this one right here is now the specific new biome. Many additional Uber portals have been added to the builder's crafting bench, including U11 Worlds of each of the different areas. So I don't even know why they ended up doing this, frankly speaking. But I guess cool, whatever. Where is it? Oh, in the portal section. There we go. So now we've actually got portals that we can physically have in our club worlds that go up to U11. But you can see the price is slightly increased. And generally speaking, these portals, these were always pretty expensive. So there wasn't, I don't even know why they have these, considering the Atlas already replaces it. I guess just because it's cool to have them. I don't know. Portal hubs are nice. They're aesthetically nice. They're not very functional anymore. But anyways, Crystal 4 gear can now drop from 5-star dungeons in U11, Geode Topside, and Prime Worlds. They should be clear about that, because I think the Elemental Worlds do count as Prime Worlds, unless they're saying specifically Prime World and Geode Surface. Point is that U11 has 5-star dungeons, and I guess just Prime World and Geode Topside are going to end up having a small chance of actually dropping Crystal 4 gear, which is phenomenal because it means that we no longer are reliant on delves in order to end up getting Crystal gear. However, a little bit of feedback that I gotta give here is that U11 is insanely overpowered right now. I think that they may have made a little bit of a mistake, because U11 actually recommends 20,000 power rank, and I can confirm you need 35,000 power rank and up in order to even just barely handle U11, okay? Like, it's that powerful. And so what I'm getting at is delves, more specifically, deep enough delves to end up getting Crystal 4 gear is still going to be much easier for players to end up fighting through, rather than actually bumping up to U11 difficulty, just because the difficulty spikes up super duper high. But whatever, it's still awesome that we can get C4 gear in Primal Uber Worlds. So beginning in U10, all adventure worlds will now benefit from light. So you do have to have a minimum light value from U10 and in U10 and U11. Geode Topside worlds still get benefits from light from U8, so generally speaking, just Geode Surface is still the exact same and is still affected by light value, but now U10 and U11 is going to end up benefiting from it no matter where you are. So they also end up talking about the Atlas updates. So the map has been updated so that it only goes up to U7. Elemental Worlds and Prime Worlds now only have one node at the Atlas instead of highlighting individual nodes. Players use a drop-down menu to determine which Uber level they want to select. This drop-down defaults to the highest difficulty the user can access. Then there's also going to end up being the subclass power rank updates. So subclasses have had new ranks added for 35k and 40k power rank. Some abilities have been adjusted to be more effective. So this is kind of interesting because I guess having 35k on a class didn't make a difference on the live server right now, but I guess they just added it up to 40k. The funny thing is that you can actually get over 45k PR, but they didn't seem to end up adding any buffs for that for the subclass abilities, but okay, whatever. I guess I'll let you guys read through this because it's pretty wordy. And generally speaking, it just kind of talks about percentages towards the different buffs and so on and so forth. But it does definitely make a lot of these subclass abilities a lot more viable, just because they kind of ended up buffing and changing some of them on top of adding the higher tier of them. But there's just way too many to cover, so we're going to end up just scrolling through that really, really quickly. And moving on to the store updates. So crystal gem converters can also be found in the store for, you know, we ended up talking about those, but there's also going to end up being the 3 Solarion packs. Now, here's the interesting thing. Free-to-play players, or even players that are willing to end up spending a quick buck, can basically end up getting the Solarion class for 10 bucks, and you'll end up getting a costume and an ally. However, those of us that are mastery farmers, or even pay-to-win players, such as myself, will actually have to buy each of the Solarion's packs, because each of them gives you different items. So this one only gives you this costume and these items. This one only gives you this costume and these items, and so on and so forth. So you have to buy all of them, and it equivalents to somewhere around like 50 bucks, which is not bad considering the Bard is like way more expensive. I don't know why the game just keeps dying right now, but if we go to the Bard pack, you can see the Super Bard pack is roughly 80 bucks, which is cash only, not credits, so we can't use any credits that were left over from any other category. But anyways, it'll end up giving you a heap of different items that you can end up obtaining free to play by crafting them. But generally speaking, it's another one of those scenarios where I'd recommend even free to play to just grind the credit pouches to end up buying some of these packs, just because the items that are required in order to craft the items you get out of the pack are just astronomically insane. So anyways, the store should now properly, consistently hide products the player already owns in the deals tab. And now we're already on to the additional updates. Thankfully, this is why we had to kind of skip through a lot of things. And we'll go into more detail within another video about like the class itself and so on and so forth, just because otherwise we would be here all day and this video would be like 40 minutes long. So Paragon level leaderboards have been added. These contests will rotate weekly and reward players with the most Paragon levels gained for a specific class for that week. So I know you guys are going to be really hyped about that. I kind of don't really care and have unsubscribed from the idea of, oh, I want to be the highest power Paragon level or something. You know, it doesn't matter to me, just because I already have my crystal rings anyways on the classes that I care about. Many hidden effects have been adjusted to apply in discovery mode within the delves, allowing, or although they will not apply inside the geode caves. So the point that they're getting at with this is, while geode caves, you're not going to get the hidden ring effects. Most of all, it's when you tab into your vacuum mode within the geode, or within the delves, sorry, not geode caves, the delves, you'll still retain the crystal ring effect. Because I guess up to this point, it just toggled the effect off just while you were in that build mode, while you're in the delves, which is kind of weird, but okay. This is a huge change right here. Removing equipped gems no longer requires regeminators, which is probably one of the best things that ever came to Trove, dude, especially for somebody like me, where I like swapping my gems a lot to end up giving you guys videos on, you know, the different classes and so on and so forth, like the 36K series that we're running right now, which, incidentally, I'm going to do my best to rush out the rest of the classes within the 36K category of video, because once this update comes out, we're going to be moving on to 40K and up. And it I'll end up having to redo all of the videos again once we get to 40K. But the point is that I want to end up having the 36K videos out there, just because it's kind of a best way to give you guys an end game example. And a lot of that info is still going to end up being retained, outside of the fact that U11 is just going to be so absurdly difficult. But anyways, I just wanted to update you guys on that. So they updated some of the ore found in geode caves to properly glow. Shadowhunter's Shadow Mark no longer erroneously applies to harmless NPCs, like those appearing in featured items, workbench, and so on and so forth. I guess it would just shadow mark things that are in the environment that it didn't need to. Cave milk should now properly grant energy regeneration to all classes in the geode caves. Cave milk should now properly grant energy regeneration to all classes except Pirate Captain and Lunar Lancer in the delves. Cave milk does not grant energy regeneration for Pirate Captain and Lunar Lancer, since they do not normally regenerate energy over time. I wonder if that ends up affecting the Solarion, because he's kind of got a weird mechanic like that as well, and so does the Boomeranger, so it's kind of weird that they only ended up tackling those classes, but okay, whatever. Fixing an issue with the Critter Bomb secondary style where the VFX was not being updated. Gems below crystal rarity now default to being loot collected. Thank God. That's actually really nice, because normally we would end up having to change it all with the super loot collector. It's a mod, so those on console are now going to benefit from that. However, you want to be careful because you don't want to accidentally loot collect your stellar gems is the point. Fixed an issue where hairstyle icons would not load when the player was headless, but previewing the appearance of another headstyle. The ignore list should now properly continue to prevent messages after a player uses a name changer. I didn't even know that that was a thing. Fixed an issue where players on low level classes might not see their health regenerate. Fixed an issue that could make some icons turn invisible in build mode for the Dino Tamer, and that's going to end up doing it for the additional changes and for this patch notes video. So overall, this is a fantastic patch and probably one of the best ones that Trove has ever gotten, at least in many years. Generally speaking, the update is very difficult, but it's very challenging, and I like that. It's basically, this is the update for endgame players such as myself, and a lot of you might not see the big benefits of this update until you're considerably stronger, because obviously with U11 being as difficult as it is for somebody like me, it means that the average player who isn't really at the end game is just going to end up being impossible for you know, fighting at the end game level. One other thing that I did want to mention briefly that I think was mentioned in this patch notes, but I forget where I read it, is you might be wondering about U11 for Geode topside. So the only thing that ends up changing with that is obviously the crystal, you know, crystal 4 gear, and then obviously the crystal gem drops. But also, if you end up fighting a Leviathan, apparently it will be a random Leviathan from U8, U9, and U10. And gives drops appropriately for each of those, which is kind of stupid, and I don't really get it, but I guess they just assume that if you're in U11, you have a permatorch, which is kind of weird. I don't know. It's very strange, because it just kind of seems like what a waste of time to be in U11 and fight an upscaled version of a U8 Leviathan, and then you get U8 permanent torch instead of a U10 one. Like, it just, I don't know, it's very strange. But there is a couple other small things that we won't end up talking about today, because like I said, we'll talk about in other videos. Thank you so much for watching though, gamers. Really appreciate it. Smash like, sub for more, buy the merch you want to support the channel, and have yourselves a wonderful day.